Welcome back to the Faculty Factory podcast. I'm Kim Skorupski at the University of Texas Medical Branch in sunny Galveston, Texas, looking at my new friend and colleague here at UTMB, Dr. Donna Adams. Good morning, Donna.
Good morning, Kim. How are you today?
I'm great. I'm so excited to talk about something we've never talked about on the podcast. So, friends, let me tell you who is Dr. Donna Adams. She is the program director for the Institute for Translational Sciences Office of Educational Programs. I met her a few months back and was just so impressed with her depth and breadth of knowledge about all things in the ITS office and programming and her passion for students and faculty. And her topic today is, again, something you've not heard on the Faculty Factory podcast, but it's really appropriate for faculty members, for leaders, for learners who are thinking about getting into academic health, and it is providing effective career guidance. So thank you, Donna, for being here and helping us understand the common concerns that our learners are having in this VUCA times, these volatile times that we're in, and the fears they're having, and how can we as faculty members, as leaders, support our learners and maybe also, improve our own leadership in being aware of what this current generation of learners has and their options.
Yeah. So I just kind of a little more about me is I've been in student affairs for well over 15 years now. And so my focus has always kind of been on students, but as my role has evolved here at the ITS and the Institute for Translational Sciences, I have also been working with faculty and staff and pre-docs, postdocs, early career investigators. So it's been interesting to see their career evolution over the last, I've been here almost 12 years now, and going with them, listening to them, their concerns. They do have a lot of, I noticed the concerns have picked up a lot, probably in the last 5 to 6 years. We have the COVID cohort, as we kind of refer to, and things started changing pretty drastically back in 2020. So, one of the common things I hear is, and it starts with our recruits from day one who are looking at our human pathophysiology and translational medicine PhD program. They tend to ask, what are my options post-graduation? And I think that's an important thing for faculty to think about in regards to, okay, we may not necessarily have every option at our school for them. Maybe they want to do cancer research, but maybe we don't have as many cancer researchers as to kind of go pick from or meet with. And so I always tell students, you need to look long term. You need to think about what skills can I pick up now that could be transferable to a postdoc to get into where I really want to go. Sometimes you have to play the long game instead of the short game. And that tends to work pretty well. And sometimes, the school, starting at the school, it may not be their right opportunity for them. But I tell them, we have graduates in industry, we have graduates at the government level, we have postdocs, we have ones that have gone on, they're now instructors. I think that's kind of the great part about our program, but also about UTMB in general is they can kind of create their own pathway, but we need to kind of help guide some of these conversations for them too.
You mentioned earlier before we started recording this hidden career programming. Tell us about that. I was really intrigued by that.
Yeah, so we're starting in our Clinical and Translational Science Award, or CTSA, Workforce Development, a hidden careers opportunity. We partnered last year with Houston Methodist and a couple other area organizations where we had undergraduate students coming to UTMB to do internships and learn about some of these, what we've dubbed as hidden careers being maybe a clinical researcher, or clinical researcher coordinator, I should say, or maybe somebody in billing, somebody in the institutional review board. There's all these opportunities on campus, even grant writers. A lot of people we've kind of learned stumble into positions in science that we didn't necessarily know that were there. So what we want to do is kind of open the door so then they know earlier in high school, maybe this is something that would interest them for college, because I do think that our students are being more aware of long term. Because I know when I started school, I had no clue what I was going to do. I thought I was going to go into agricultural business. Definitely not there. And now I'm in STEM as an educational professional, still doing what I went to school for my master's and doctorate, but at the same time, it's kind of evolved a little bit. And I think that had I known about these career options earlier, I probably would have went there earlier in my path. So the Hidden Careers program in itself, there's the internship, but we're also going to be doing little hour-long sessions for high school and undergrad students to learn more about some of these opportunities that will be available post-graduation for the ones that we know that there is a need for. UTMB and Houston Methodist did a publication working with our HR partners to determine open jobs, open positions that we really needed. And there was quite a bit of overlap with that. And it was kind of interesting to see the needs. So we've kind of focused some of our workforce shift towards those needs.
That's so interesting. This is completely opposite of where my head has been in my career. And so I'm imagining that nationally, internationally, there are lots of efforts at the community level of bridging that gap and having a pipeline and the bench of preparedness. And I like how you pointed out the idea of science being broader than beakers and test tubes, that when we think,
Mm-hmm.
we kind of tend to put things in little boxes, and we put math here and science there and the arts here without recognizing that, as you point out, what is science? And okay, draw a picture of what you think science is, or what does it look like? And now all the things that get that done are all these ancillary, network spider webby kind of jobs that I'm sure some people go, oh, that's what is science, or that helps science, or that's part of science. What do statistics have to do with science? What does biomechanical engineering have to do with science? So I
Right.
love how you have explained that awareness, bringing that back to grade school, high school, that as faculty members and leaders around the world, again, I'm being, ignorant here, but I assume that a lot of these programs exist in many of our institutions. And if not, my gosh, there's so much opportunity. So I love that. And
Yes.
I want to know what you know, or what you in your field you're learning or thinking about with the obvious thing, AI. And I'm sure how that's adding to a little bit of maybe anxiety with future, leaders saying, where can I get a job? What's happening? Is there space for me? How can I make an impact in this space?
Yeah, I think with AI, it's kind of one of those unknowns still, right? Where we're still trying to get our bearings on what does this mean? Like you said, I do think that there's a lot of good with it, and it can definitely help with the efficiencies in any of like the roles that I was talking about with the hidden careers. I think that that can help with that. I do think that there is some abuse that we have seen with AI too, and we kind of got to figure out how that goes in academia and beyond. But also, I've developed a course plan. I think we're going to actually put it into, I'm hoping it goes into action, but it kind of uses AI and helping students, one, learn how to positively use AI, but two, do some career exploration within it. And it's more for high school students. But it kind of incorporates both worlds, because this generation, they love their tech, and we're not going to get away from that as professionals and faculty. So we need to embrace it and kind of come up with some innovative ways for helping students along. And I think it can also help in career advising. Like if there are certain things that you love to do more than others, that's a great kind of have a little question and answer period with Chat GPT or your AI bot that you're using. Because I've had students that they thought they were going into bench. Then they're like, no, I'm going to be a writer, a grant writer. And then they're like, I don't like that. And now they're actually advising graduate students at a biomedical school. So I'm here going, that's good to go through the trial and error and kind of learn and figure it out. Sometimes you have to do that. Whereas some people know exactly what they want to do. Others, they know this is the general field I want to be in, but what do I want to do within that field? So, you may have a mentee that you've had that you see potentially going in this direction. And then whenever they veer off to doing something else, I think we just need to be like, okay, you know what? That is absolutely what they should be doing because it brings them happiness. Because we spend a lot of time in our careers. And if you're not happy, it's not going to work long term.
Yeah. So, Donna, what advice would you give to faculty members across the career spectrum? So I'm thinking early career, my gosh, if I'm just new to academic health, I'm trying to figure out my own bearings. I may be new to an institution, or even if I, did training at the institution, now I'm in a new role. Now I'm a role called faculty member. Now I'm an instructor or an assistant professor, and I'm trying to figure out the culture and my positionality. What in the world can I do for someone a few rungs down the ladder to me? What advice would you give to that early career faculty member who's in a classroom or teaching a postdoc or has staff in their lab? Or what guidance would you give them while they're knowing that they themselves are trying to figure out to some degree how to be and how to be successful?
I think one of the most important things we need to remember is mentorship never ends. What I have seen is there's certain ones that hit a certain part in their career, and they're like, I don't need anyone. When in fact, the best thing you can do is build relationships with everyone on campus to kind of have an understanding, because that's important to understand the culture. That's important for your development. I grew up showing horses, and my horse trainer at 12 years old, I'm going to kind of go off a little bit on a little story here, but it's relevant, I promise. I said to Art, Art, I want to be just like you. You know everything there is to know about horses. And he looked at me and he goes, Donna, I don't know everything there is to know about horses. They teach me something new every day. You're going to learn something new every day. And no matter how well you think you know something or people tell you know something, there's still more to learn. And it's just kind of stuck with me. And that's a story that I tell our incoming classes when they come in, because I think it's important for them to understand you're going to be a lifelong learner. And that is one part of the career path that no matter what field you're in, you're going to continuously be learning. I think another thing is we've kind of got to adjust with the technology and the times and understand that where I learned is probably very different than our learners coming in as pre-docs or postdocs or early career. And we really need to be aware of those generational differences in how they learn or how they want to be mentored. One of the easiest pieces of advice I can give is ask them, how do you best learn? how do you, um, how can I best support you in your overall journey? And they're very open in telling you. I have learned that. But that helps build that trust and that relationship too for longevity and moving on in their learning.
Yeah, good tips. I like the lifelong learning reminder and that mentorship never ends. And that works for everybody. Obviously, the students and fact, all of us. It's just so on point. When you see this breakdown, so you just said something that stuck with me. Ask them. So ask the students, how do you like to get information? How does something stick? Are you a doer? Or do you like to listen? Do you like to read? What works for you? How do you see faculty and students navigating a healthy relationship for both ends? Because I'm right away, because I do, as you know, in my Office of Faculty Development role, and I talk with faculty all the time, is one of their challenges as faculty members is setting clear boundaries with students, or replace the word students with patients. That some patients somehow get some provider's text number and they're texting their provider, or they're emailing their physician, or texting their professor students 24/7 and expecting immediate responses, or popping in unannounced. And how do you, when things kind of go wrong, I imagine it'd be the opposite of like what you said to do, like when we don't communicate or we don't set clear boundaries. But I'm going from my end thinking, gosh, if I catered over the top to my learners, my colleagues, my patients, I am going to really, I'm going to struggle, because if I'm trying to be everything to everybody all the time, I will not be effective. I will not be efficient. I will be fatigued. So when this goes wonky or goes off the rails, how do you see that happen? And how do you get people to pivot, and how do we help this generation of learners maybe understand boundaries?
Yeah. So my background, I actually started in housing and residence life. That's like a 24-hour, 7 day a week job on most campuses between on call rotations and activities and everything going on. I had to learn early on in my career, so hopefully this helps others, that if you have the conversation up front, it's a lot easier than having to visit it later on. Because then sometimes feelings are hurt by the students. Like, what, you don't want me to text you about something going on after 10 o'clock? No, I don't. But if it's an emergency, yes, but you should call the on call person. There has to be appropriate levels of communication for everything. Now I tell my team, and I tell our students, because they have access to me, listen, I will answer you. Sometimes it may be the next morning, especially if it's not an emergency. And they get that. But if you have to go back, the best piece of advice I can give on that is just being, hey, I realize we did not have this conversation early on, but I think we need to establish some boundaries here, as far as everything goes regarding your project, or um, different things that could come up. Sometimes they just want to text and say hi. But I think they're going to be receptive to it no matter what. And because you have already maybe laid that groundwork of respect, it's going to go a whole lot easier. With patients, I know that's a little bit different. I work with clinicians too. But I also think most patients would be understandable that there has to be some sort of boundaries, and being able to just say, I need to do this for my own mental health. I put my phone on sleep mode at 8 p.m. every night. I know that if it's an emergency, they'll double text or whatever. But for the most part, you have to establish some clear boundaries, whether it be upfront, later on. But either way, I think if you can admit, if it is a later on situation, if you just say, hey, I've been thinking about this, you have to approach it softly with your students. Some are very good direct communicators, others are not. And so I just kind of like to take the middle ground of, listen, I've been thinking about this and let's talk this out a little bit. And they're good with it.
Yeah. Donna, I'm wondering if when you earlier in the conversation, you said, it's normal, it's natural for people to kind of dip their toes in different waters and experiment along this line and maybe thinking, oh, I want to go do this. And then after spending a minute there going, that's really not what I expected, or I'm not enjoying that, or that doesn't, that's not my thing.
Yeah.
If we take that to the opposite kind of, and again, I'm always trying to put myself in the shoes of faculty members who are, having, again, back to my same mantra, they have multiple competing demands. They're seeing patients, they're teaching classes, they're trying to produce scholarship, they're trying to do research, they're on committees and all these things happening. And then you've got maybe a learner, a postdoc, pre-doc, who's maybe struggling, and they kind of hop around. You see them kind of like popcorning, maybe this, maybe that, maybe this, maybe that. And for, gosh, I know faculty members are the same way. They're kind of like all over the place. And we talk about somebody being maybe a mile wide and an inch deep versus an inch wide and a mile deep, that the importance of focusing and having being expert in a specific area versus kind of, squirrel, and running here, running there. So how do you, again, to take that to the extreme, where do you find that sweet spot between a healthy curiosity, and this is the stage, the time of life where you could maybe explore, look at this, look at that, and then the opposite part where that gets dangerous, where you're not closing the loop on things, you're just it's too much exploration. It's too much short attention span theater, if you will. Do you understand what I'm saying? Kind of have, in your experience, what would you suggest to both learners and faculty members who may be listening to this and trying to understand, geez, am I doing that too much or too little?
I think there's a difference. I think there's a couple different ways to look at this. I think there's a difference on somebody who is maybe trying to climb the career ladder because they know they want to get to a certain level. Even still, I think that old saying that says you should probably stick in a position at least 2 years still rings true to me before you move on to the next one. Because it's kind of one of those things where it may not be the exact right fit at the moment. However, you need to learn the skills and really be in something for at least a year before you start saying, this is not for me. Because there can always be that light switch that flips, if you will, where you may start to like it. And it may be like, oh, I didn't see this coming because I really didn't like it in the first couple months. But it was probably because you were learning something new and it was challenging. And you have to kind of work through some of those feelings, if you will. Because it's even when I've moved around, and I have moved around quite a bit for my career, but I remember right out of college, I moved down to Houston from Ohio, and I said, I'm not going to do this. I want to leave. And my mom goes, you have 12 months here before you're allowed to leave. And if you want to leave after that, we will help with that. But until then, stay put because you need to see this through. I'm thankful she did that because there were a lot of aspects of the job that were hard that I was doing at that time. But at the same time, it gave me a lot of growth and opportunity within myself. And I think that even when our students, and I keep track, we communicate annually at the very least, I find out what they've been doing over the year. And I'm not afraid to say to them, hey, what's been going on with you? Why are we switching? Why are we hopping or whatever? And usually we talk through that a little bit. I built these relationships while our students were here, and I want to ensure that they're still doing well later on in their careers. And I think sometimes what happens is once they graduate or once they've kind of gotten out of their postdoc and they're into their next position or whatnot, they don't necessarily hear as much from who they really learn from and spend all that time with in their grad program. And I think that those relationships are important. I will always say that relationships are the most important thing that we have. And our students, because they know I care, they're receptive to feedback too. Like, hey, you might want to chill out a little bit and stay put. But for the most part, our students, once they don't, it doesn't take a lot of time for them to find their path. It's just getting onto the right path because the job market's not easy right now. We all know this. Um, and I think a lot of times with academia, they think they want to do academia, then they find out the real demands of what comes with that. And they're like, oh, how do I make this balance work? And that's where they need mentorship again on this is how you do the balance. And they need to find that person to kind of help their guide that part too, because the mentorship, they need a little bit on that personal side too. And I don't mean personal life or anything like that, but more on this is how you set clear boundaries. This is how you can effectively move forward in creating that life outside of work. Because I think sometimes we forget about that, especially early on in the careers.
Oh, Dr. Adams, you're so right about giving something time. And I'm reflecting on something. And of course, I can't remember where I read it or heard it on a podcast or whatnot. But somebody said, a year and a half, you really can't judge a new position, a new role, a new anything, house, relationship, city, whatever, for a year and a half. Give it that amount of time because the unfamiliar maybe probably will be to some degree uncomfortable. So we're our brains, our hearts, so we're not used to, we don't like the discomfort. So finding some comfort in the discomfort, the unknown, the unfamiliar, at first it's like, oh, you're homesick, if you will, for lack of a better, when you go
Yeah.
away to camp, sleepaway camp for the first time, where you go to a new city, or you are in a new whatever, fill in the blank, a new role, a new school, a new program, a new whatever. It's that kind of moment of the brain and your body going, wait a minute, it's a little bit of a lag of what is happening here. Everything's different. The food's different. The people are different. Different, different, different. Different is uncomfortable. Different is scary. And then after a minute, you're like, oh, but I like that little place on the corner, and that person was really cool. And gosh, that's a cool building. And yeah, I guess I didn't like him at first, but now he seems pretty cool. I mean, that kind of recognizing that it takes a beat to find a groove somewhere. And we all have that. I think all the way, what you're saying, Donna, over our life course, being lifelong learners and being curious, innately curious, and knowing that we need mentorship along the whole career. That goes from people I coach who are deans or aspiring to be deans and chairs and assistant professor, associate professor, professor, pre-doc, postdoc, all the way up the whole career ladder. These significant life events bring change. And even think personally, when you moved out of the house, you found a partner, you decided to get married and have kids, on and on and on. All those changes can be uncomfortable. But if you give it a minute before you know it, even if someone doesn't want to be in academic health, they're like, oh, I'm going to industry, or I'm definitely going to go into government work. I'm definitely going to go into nonprofit. I'm going to go work for an NGO. Okay. And while you're here, wherever here is, there's a lot to learn. As you said
Yep.
earlier, Donna, transferable skills, a lot of these skills that you're learning in the job now until you stop learning. I mean, there's stuff to learn. And all those things you're learning, how to think, how to be a critical thinker, how to do tasks, how to be in relationship with people, how to lead yourself, all those things. It's not like there's a vacuum. There's nothing you can learn until you do stop learning. And then you're like, okay, it's time to repot because I'm done growing here. But that
Right.
reminder, give yourself a minute. There's a lot to learn. And while you're here, leverage that and then take what you've learned and personalize it to wherever else you're going next.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think a lot of times we want an easy button, and that's not life. And we really need to realize that doesn't exist. And the one constant that we have that is inevitable is change. And so we need to get comfortable with the uncomfortable, whether that be in our learning, our mentorship, and just, I think I see a lot of, I'm a very direct communicator. A lot of people are not. And you kind of have to work on helping our learners. How do you have those difficult conversations? They need that experience. And the best way to do that is by providing some psychological safety while addressing that.
Wow. We've covered a lot today, Donna. I really like all the advice and lots of hidden nuggets and gems here on providing effective career guidance. And again, what I really like about this topic is that it reminds us that what we are maybe tasked with doing for others kind of comes back to us. And the idea that as we are getting curious about our learners and early career faculty who are maybe a rung, behind us, um, that being curious and asking them what they're thinking, what they're learning, what they're curious about, that feeds back into us. And that advice that we give sometimes often is just like, oh, physician, heal thyself. Do you remember what you said to me? Someone just actually said to me, I was coaching yesterday, and they said to me, gosh, I mean, that's interesting. I remember that you told me about 9 months ago, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I did it? And I'm like, all right, well, that makes sense for me right now. And I should take some of my own advice because it was so lovely how things go full circle and that how we help others, it helps us. And it's just this feedback loop. So I'll leave the party
Yeah.
to you, Donna. I've enjoyed our time together, but how would you like to wrap up our conversation today?
Well, I think we need to remember that no matter where we are in our careers, we are lifelong learners, and we will always have someone looking to us for some sort of career guidance, whether it be short term or long term, because everyone has goals and those goals are different for everyone. And we kind of need to embrace what that particular person's goals are and try to help navigate their learning in a direction in which it's going to be positive for them. But yeah, I've enjoyed our time today, and I hope you found this helpful. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Donna. And we'll see you next time on the Faculty Factory podcast. Thanks for tuning in to the Faculty Factory podcast. We are a faculty development community sharing tools to build academic leaders in healthcare. Maybe you want to be interviewed on the podcast? Please visit facultyfactory.org/contact and send me a message there. The Faculty Factory podcast and website is sponsored by the Office of Faculty Affairs at the University of Texas Medical Branch in Galveston, Texas.